Welcome to another exciting teaching from 26 West Church Kids. We hope you enjoy learning more about our great God and grow in enjoying Him in your everyday moments. Be sure to check out the Parent Weekly at 26westchurch.org/parents for more information from our teaching today. Here we go.
Welcome back, everybody. My name's Jamie, and today I have brought with me
Mesa,
and we are going to share with you about the Big God story. So we're moving on up into the future. We've heard a lot about the Israelites. Now they are finally to the point where they get to go into the promised land that they've been waiting on for so long. We are going to find out about how God is the one with the strength. So God is strength. We're looking in the book of Joshua, so grab your Bible. We'll look in chapter 1 and chapter 3. So get ready to follow along with us as we start. We have a new remember verse for you today, and it's found in Isaiah chapter 40. This is verse 29. It says, "He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak." That's good news, because sometimes I feel weary, and I'm glad that God is the one who gives me my strength.
yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, so here we are. We're about several months, into this new kind of way the world is acting.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for you, and I bet you can relate.
Okay.
Has there, and for you guys at home too, has there ever been a time where you missed out on something that you had been looking forward to?
Yes, many times due to COVID.
Yeah, that's how life is right now. It's not always easy. Would you be up for sharing one of those things?
So I remember this was like right before COVID became a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
That I had a play coming up, and it was like the day before we had to stay home. And I remember getting so excited, and I was practicing all my lines, and I got this email, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, we're not doing the play. Apparently, you have no school tomorrow because we have to stay home." And I was like, "Oh, come on. I just worked on that so hard."
Yeah, and I'm sure that was so disappointing, and I can relate as well, having to give up things that I was expecting to do.
Mm-hmm.
So the Israelites, they're about to go through an experience where they are also missing out on something that they had really, really been looking forward to. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do, let's pause and let's take one quick minute and pray and invite God just to be here with us. Jesus, thank you so much for your great love for us. Thank you for being here with us today and just for giving us this day. We love you, and we just pray that you will please help us learn and grow and become more like you as we listen to your story today. So, remember way back when the Israelites were rescued from being slaves in Egypt? They had been oppressed there for like 400 years. And finally, they're set free, and they go into the desert. God had made this covenant with them. It showed them how to set themselves apart by living like Him. He gave them the 10 Commandments to study. So Moses goes up on the mountain, receives these tablets, and comes down and shares them with the people. So unfortunately, the Israelites stopped trusting and obeying God. Not a good move. Learn from history. Keep trusting God. So God disciplined them for their lack of faith, and He told Moses that they were not going to get to enter the Promised Land. Instead of entering the Promised Land, they wandered around in the desert for 40 years.
Wow.
That's about how long I've been alive. And I can't imagine wandering around. This desert wasn't even that big, but they could just never figure out how to get where they were going. So they wandered around for 40 years. And so even though the people disobeyed, God did not forget His promise that He gave to the Israelites that they would get their own land. So the next generation of God's people are the ones who would get to see the Promised Land. So when Moses was about to die, he's lived this long life, he's led the people, but he hasn't made all the right choices. So when he's about to die, he gives the word to a man named Joshua. He says to Joshua, "You're going to lead God's people into the Promised Land instead of Moses." So this is what it says here in Joshua chapter 1, verses 3 through 6. Of course, it's named Joshua. I guess we're going to be hearing about Joshua. It says, I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country, to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. So God is telling Joshua, be strong and courageous. And he's not saying, hey, Joshua, hit the gym, go bulk up and get these huge muscles.
No.
He's not talking about physical strength. He's talking about mental, spiritual strength. So as a person who is trying to follow God, what do you think? What do you think it means to be spiritually strong and courageous? What do you think?
I think what it means is to kind of get involved with the Bible and read and learn, or whatever it looks like for you, whether that's reading, singing, praying, taking 5 minutes out of your day to slow down and to just pray or do whatever you need to do to get mentally stronger.
Yeah, because our strength isn't going to come from weights in the gym, the kind that we need to follow God. It doesn't come from that. So it takes faith to be strong and courageous. It takes self-discipline, trusting God. That's the kind of faith we're talking about. So first, God told Joshua to read through the law, and you have the law here in front of you. It's on a scroll, right? It's the 10 Commandments. So Joshua reads through the 10 Commandments. And then God knew that reading those commandments would increase Joshua's faith. Just like you're saying, getting into the Word of God increases our faith, makes us more spiritually strong. So it says this in Joshua chapter 1, verse 9, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So God reminded Joshua that he is our strength and that he would be the source of our courage and our strength. So Joshua didn't have to be strong by himself because he had God with him.
Yes.
So yes, thank you for the law. Thank you for God and the words that he gives us through his scriptures, right? So Joshua did a good thing. He followed God's instructions and he told the people, get ready, prepare yourselves. We're going to cross the Jordan River. So the Jordan River cut God's people off from the promised land. So they're like, there's the promised land. Here we are, river. What are we going to do about that? So this river, crossing it's a very important first step in getting to the promised land. So we have this river that swells up in front of us, and the people said to Joshua, just as we fully obeyed Moses, so we will obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you, as he was with Moses. And that's Joshua 1:17. Although I do remember sometimes the people did not completely and fully obey Moses.
Yeah.
Maybe this generation will be different.
Never perfect.
No, neither am I, actually.
None of us are.
So before the people crossed the river, Joshua gave them these instructions. First, he told them to follow the Ark of the Covenant. So the priests are the one who carry the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant is this big box. It's gold. It's very immaculate. The details to making it are very specific. God laid that out for the priests. It is what holds the 10 Commandments. So the priests carried this Ark of the Covenant into the river, and there they are in the river. Listen what happens in Joshua 3. This is verse 15 and 16. So let me grab it here really quick. Okay. It was the harvest season, so the Jordan River was overflowing its banks. You guys have been in Oregon. We've had floods in the last month.
Many.
So as soon as the feet of the priests who were carrying the ark touched the water at the river's edge, the water above that point began backing up a great distance away at a town called Adam, which is near Zarethan, or something like that. And the water below that point flowed on to the Dead Sea until the riverbed was completely dry.
Wow.
So then all the people crossed over near the town of Jericho. I think there's something that happens in Jericho in the future, but we'll get to that.
Yes.
So let me get here in my paper really quick. Okay, so as soon as the priests get to the water stops flowing. I mean, it just stops flowing right there in the moment. So water's gone. The priests are holding the Ark of the Covenant. They stand in front of the water until every single Israelite is across the Jordan River and they've reached the other side. I feel like this is deja vu. It's something I've heard before somewhere. Can you remember?
I think it was Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark. Well, we had the water rise up and then the water went down. God does a lot of work with water, doesn't he?
Yes,
Coincidentally.
He does.
So, and then there was a part where Moses, the Red Sea paused for him, and so that the Israelites could cross that. So God did that for the Israelites, and once again, this new generation is witnessing God's power because God is strength. He is the one with all of this strength. And when you witness God's power or you hear about it, it increases your faith. It makes you have more faith. So then Joshua chose 12 different men. They were all the different leaders of the tribes of Israel. So we can put our covenant kind of aside, or not our covenant, the Ark of the Covenant, aside for a minute. Each leader of the tribes was asked to get a rock from the middle of the river and carry it to the other side. So we have all these different rocks that represent these tribes. God wanted these rocks to stand as a reminder that he had cut off the river, the flow of the river. And even if the rocks are kind of heavy, maybe the priests or the ones who are carrying the rocks have to be strong enough to carry them. But they couldn't get the rocks out of the middle of the river if the water was there. So they needed God's strength to stop the water in order to be able to even get a rock to follow these instructions. So while the men collected the rocks, the priests stood in the middle of the Jordan River. Once everyone had crossed the river, the priests followed with the Ark of the Covenant to the other side. What do you think happened next after the priests were across the river?
I think that they'll come up and get out.
Okay, so they're across, they're getting out. Okay, Joshua 4, verse 18. And the priests came up out of the river carrying the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. So you're right, they come up and out. No sooner had they set their feet on dry ground than the waters of the Jordan returned to their place. And not only did they come back to regular, they returned back to flood stage, just as before. Okay, yeah, so I think God might have been with them. I think he had a plan, and I think he's strong. The priests, their feet get to the other side, and all of a sudden the water comes rushing back. So the Israelites had left Egypt, and then they experienced this long, long period of time where they were in a lot of pain, they were upset, and didn't know what was going on, and they were forced to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. And God disciplined that entire generation because they didn't have faith that he was strong and that he would take care of them. However, good news, the next generation of Israelites did have enough faith to follow God and enough courage to choose the path that God had provided for them. I think it was probably really hard at times for them to trust God. I know that even in my own life, when things are really hard, I can get to the point where I'm like, what's going on? You have a plan. I know you have a plan. Keep helping me. So I'm sure it was difficult because they had to deal with this for a really long time. But they knew God was their strength and that he would, in fact, lead them into the promised land. And he did bring them into the promised land. So after God disciplines us, it can take courage in order to submit to God's way for our lives instead of looking for our own plan and our own path, but trust God and submit to his plan. So it's especially tough when you don't know what's going to happen. But God is the one who's the source of our strength. He's the source of our courage, so we can trust him. And when we choose to trust him and obey him, he gives us everything we need to follow him. So I would encourage you, if you haven't decided to trust God, He's trustworthy. You can trust him. You can obey him. You can follow him, and he will lead you into the path that he has set out for you. That is a good path, too. The priests didn't let fear stop them. They knew of God's strength. They knew how he would do mighty things and that he had done mighty things. So through God's strength, he can help us overcome our own fears so that we can follow him. You talked about some ideas, ways that we could lean into God's strength. Could you tell me one of those one more time?
Yes, reading the Bible or praying.
Yeah, really simple things. Wake up, spend time reading the Bible. Listen to the lessons that we tell you because they come straight from the Bible. It's God's words that we're sharing with you.
Yeah.
When you experience God's power in your life, tell people about your experience because it's encouraging. My faith grows stronger when I hear about God's power in other people's life. Mm-hmm. So I've got a verse I want to share with you. This is Psalm 27. This is verse 1 and 4. It says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." So we're going to do like this call and response thing. And if you'd like to join me at home, you'll go along with what Mesa says. You'll just repeat after me. We're going to say this verse one more time. So, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?
The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?
The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?"
Oh, the Lord is my stronghold of my life. Whom shall I be afraid?
One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek.
One thing that I ask from the Lord, only do I seek.
That I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple.
That I may dwell on the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple.
That would be amazing, to just be with God and just to be in his temple. I think that's where I'm going to set my heart too.
Yes.
All right. Today I want to close by sharing this blessing, praying it over you. May you know that God alone is the source of your courage and strength. May you seek him every day of your life. We want to thank you for joining us here today and just learning more about God. Remember to look in your Parent Weekly. There's questions in there that you can read to get to understand even more about God's strength. And there's activities to do to go with this lesson. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.